it's interesting because as the bubble burst, that was when the blogging tools started to come out, and the bursting of the internet bubble had a lot to do with the blog tools, because the big companies like AOL, Time Warner, and Microsoft and Yahoo, they were trying to get customers and hold the customers. So if you look at technologies from that period, like Instant Messenger, so Yahoo Instant Messenger, America Online, MS, Microsoft Network, you can't talk to each other. And if you find that interesting because the internet was based on getting people to talk to each other. So email, everybody can talk to each other, that's the whole point. But during the bubble, these islands, these big corporate interests tried to prevent the users from talking to each other. And when the internet bubble burst, a lot of people went back to the roots of the internet, which is we're supposed to try to talk to each other. And so the blogging technology really grew during this aftermath of the bubble. The other thing about the internet bubble was there were a lot of people who were unemployed. So this is just a theory, but a lot of people say that the blogging was fueled by unemployed people because they had a lot of time, they were smart, and they were sat around writing code and also talking because they had a lot of time. Because you do need a lot of time to blog a lot. And then that was also when there was a lot of political dialogue going on. So blogs were used a lot during the elections and during the 911. I mean, a lot of people say 911 was when blogs really kind of took a different level because there was so much information out there. A lot of first-hand accounts came out on the web that you couldn't find in mass media. A lot of what blogging is about is critique and is fact-checking. Generally speaking, the bloggers tend to correct, and then even if they make a mistake, they go back and they change it and they change it and they change it. And on the other hand, we are also able to take more risk. So another example that I would use is that there was a Brazilian, I can't remember the gender, but a Brazilian person who was treated poorly in Los Angeles immigration. But we got enough of a handle on it so that as a blogging community, we were able to digest that piece of news. Whereas the mainstream media, it just filtered because the cost of fact-checking wasn't worth the value of that news. And so there are a lot of cases and the thing is, it's not either mainstream media or blogging. You can't send a blogger into Sudan with a crew. And you can't go after politicians as strongly because you don't have lawyers to protect you from libel suits. But you do have lots of eyeballs. A lot of times, lots of eyeballs has a wisdom that one expert can't have. And again, you really have to determine which one is the most appropriate for the research you're trying to do. And to me, I think that if the 20th century was about armed revolutions and democracy being driven by revolution, I think the 21st century is about information. And I think that you need to have a competition of ideas, you need to have a dialogue, you need to have the ability to question authority without fear of retribution. Blogs are not very good if you're trying to hide something. It's good when you're trying to, in an authentic voice, be honest. The other thing I think we met during the JukiNet thing is my issue on privacy. So, without going into a whole discussion on privacy, one thing is that the internet has made it so that it's very easy to find out what people are saying about somebody. Well, the best way to combat that as an individual is so that your voice is as loud as everyone else's voice. So it's very difficult to hide things, but it is fairly easy if you have a blog to at least try to explain the context in which certain things are being said. What I do isn't necessarily the right answer for everyone, obviously, and I'm public enough so that anyone who spends some energy trying to find out about me can. But again, I think that if somebody really wanted to go after me, wanted to find out where I lived, wanted to know my bank account, it's very easy to do. And hackers can do it, police can do it, lawyers can do it. In Japan, it's, that you can get anything about anybody. And so, to me, I think that what I write on my blog is not anything that anybody determined couldn't get. And so to me, I think that it creates less misunderstanding as well, because people understand the context. There are certain things that I do that where I have privilege. So I'm on the board of companies, I'm on the board of school and stuff like that. So to me, being transparent about my life, about what I'm thinking, about my conflicts, is a good thing, because it provides some transparency in the way that I'm making decisions. But for normal individuals, I think you have to have privacy. And the main reason that privacy, to me, is important is that in the information age, it's becoming easier and easier for those people who are in power to collect organized information about people. And it's not really like so-and-so watches pornography or so-and-so. It's not that kind of personal information as much as information that people would use to characterize you for the purposes of some kind of discrimination. So people that end up on a no-fly list, a terrorist list, or people who would end up on a you can't join this company list, or people who would end up on you can't marry my daughter list. And so there are lots and lots of technologies now that are creating lots and lots of lists. And the way that you end up on lists will be, what books do you read, who was your roommate, what did your roommate do, where have you been most frequently. So now the reason why that's dangerous is that if you're a normal citizen, you don't want to end up on those lists, right? So you start behaving in ways that you think won't put you on those lists. So somebody, your friend, comes back from Beirut and wants to show you his travel pictures. Well, you know, maybe if I'm meeting with somebody from Beirut, I may end up on some list and I want to get a job at the embassy, so sorry, I can't, I'm too busy, I can't meet with you. And some nonprofit comes and says, you know, we want you to donate to our cause, and you just read in the newspaper that somebody got arrested in Toronto for donating to a nonprofit that turns out was related to the terrorists, so you're not going to donate to that. And oh, by the way, I'm not going to read that book, Mein Kampf, because I heard that in some countries that's a crime as well, so maybe I shouldn't go to the library. And I heard that blog posts can be used against you when you're doing immigration, so I'm going to stop writing. And suddenly what happens is you're stifling dissent and free thought. What I think blogs and what I think about with privacy that's very, very important is, if you look at Japan and the United States, maybe you don't notice the problem as much, but if you go to Iran, almost all of the free public speech now is on blogs anonymously, because the newspapers have been shut down. Or if you go to Zimbabwe, you can't have public meetings anymore because they'll shut you down. And so the internet has become the primary way for people to organize democratic free speech. And if you don't enable that, we will have a harder and harder time sort of evolving into sort of democracy and free speech. And the reason I point this out is that a lot of the technologies, and this is why I was against the Japanese national ID system, is a lot of the technologies in themselves look simple, but actually create an infrastructure for allowing the internet to become much easier to categorize, much harder to be anonymous, much harder to have free speech. And so a lot of people say, you know, anonymous speech or blogs that aren't, where you can't find out who's writing them. A lot of people say, well, that will cut down on crime, maybe cut down on fraud. But you also have to think about the fact that it will cut down on free speech, and will cut down on many things, and the ramifications of that. So it's been kind of a long rant, but I guess my point really is that internet technology has two sides. It should try to push for more transparency of those in power, because the tendency is for them to become more secretive. And it should try to, as much as possible, make it more difficult to systematically make lists and profiles of average citizens based on normal behavior that they do, in order to allow them to feel like they have free speech. That's kind of the balance.